Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you, and welcome everyone. My name is Hande. I am a current executive committee member of FEMYSO, and I will be hosting today's session with an exciting lineup of guest speakers. FEMYSO Now is a live stream and podcast series by FEMYSO. We'll be live on both YouTube and Facebook. FEMYSO is the Forum of European Muslim Youth and Student Organizations. We have over 30 plus member organizations from across Europe, whole Europe. And 2021 is our 25th anniversary year. Therefore, we are very excited to have this occasion to start the FEMYSO Now podcast series and live stream series again. In today's session, we will go through the history of FEMYSO, through the present of FEMYSO, the relevance of such an organization, but we will also look at the future. We will also talk about different topics that come up through the work of FEMYSO, and we will do this through one former president and our current president. So we have Youssef Himmat as our former president, who has been president between 2015 and 2019. And we have Abdelrahman Rizk, who has been the president since 2019 until now. So thank you for making time, Youssef and Abdelrahman, to come to this session. Also, thank you everyone who's listening, either now live or later. I'd like to just start right with the history of FEMYSO, because we've been existing for 25 years, which is, I think, quite an achievement for a youth organization. But could you tell us a little bit more of how FEMYSO was set up and why it was established? Also, the way that we will do this session is just as a dialogue, a conversation between the three of us. It's not really an interview. So whoever wants to go first, take the floor, please.
Absolutely. I mean, thank you very much, Hande, and thanks to FEMYSO also for having me here. I'm very glad to be part of this session of FEMYSO Now. Subhanallah, it's already 25 years of this organization, and hopefully there's going to be still a lot of things to come, a lot of great achievements and a lot of work to contribute for a much more diverse, cohesive and vibrant Europe. So the story of FEMYSO goes back to, let's say, 1995. That's when the idea of FEMYSO came to conception on a first place. This is somehow like the mid-90s is a time where a lot of organizations, or at least international youth organizations in Europe, got established. What it is, for example, the European Youth Forum, which got established also around the same time. And what brought FEMYSO into being on a first place was a conference that took place in Sweden in 1995, which was focusing on Islam in Europe. And through this conference, there were different youth organizations, Muslim youth organizations that took place in there. And they discovered that while we do have different local realities in which there is organizations that have been established, that there is some work that has been happening and taking place, ultimately, there is nothing that is bringing us together. There is no network that is there to provide us an opportunity to discuss with each other directly, that provides us the opportunity to learn from each other, learn from each other's good practices, learn from each other's maybe bad practices or challenges that we might have had. So that conference somehow like kickstarted the whole conversation that there was a need to establish better communication between these different organizations that were already established there. And then little by little, the conversation grew. Of course, like during that conference, there was like the idea of let's do something about it. Let's find a solution where we could move forward and provide this, let's say, platform or this loose network where we can somehow like connect with each other beyond the borders of Europe. And when we talk about Europe, we're not talking about the European Union only countries, but we also speak about the member states of the Council of Europe. Of course, which is a bigger geographical area. So that provided an opportunity, but as well as the challenge that needed to be filled. There was a gap there was a need to fill, and it took almost a whole year to bring together the organizations, to have different consultation, discuss on what would have been the better structure to provide this network. And then in 1996, this is where finally the organization has been established after discussions on what the statutes needs to be, on what should be the vision of the organization, what kind of activities should the organization come to be. Then, of course, in 25 years, the organization has evolved a lot, and I'm sure that we're going to be discussing this in a few moments. But the organization then moved from only being a network opportunity or a place to share knowledge, share know-how, get to know each other from the different realities, to an organization that brings the voice of young Muslims at the table with decision makers, that brings the opportunity for young Muslims to find ways to be proactive citizens in the different realities that they're living in, regardless of where geographically they are, regardless of what's their background.
Thank you for that. Abdelrahman, do you want to add in something here? Perhaps a bit more about the why of the establishment of FEMYSO.
Yeah, so as Youssef mentioned, the organization did evolve a lot over the 25 years. I've only been around for, let's say, 6 years, and I've seen the impact of the organization to feed into the vision, of FEMYSO, which is basically, if we can maybe remind people of the vision, it's to be the leading voice for European Muslim youth, developing and empowering them, and working together to build a more diverse, cohesive, and vibrant Europe. So the organization as a network has evolved massively, and I think also one of the key milestones of FEMYSO is establishing an office in Brussels in 2000. And this enhanced and improved our relationship and communication and engagement with the European institutions, and therefore, better representing our member organizations and better representing Muslim youth and students across Europe. Maybe I have a question or something for the audience, if they can maybe write in the chat if they're watching. Actually, FEMYSO had an office in another country before coming to Brussels, which I'll leave it there, people to guess it, and maybe like in 10-15 minutes or something, we can come back to it again and kind of say which country FEMYSO had an office there. But it's definitely not Brussels, so another country, and it's a bit more to the east as well of Brussels. So we'll keep it there. But yeah, I mean, like after this, FEMYSO, as I mentioned, like it engaged, a little more with the institutions, and one of the key milestones or key kind of dates to note is 2001, when FEMYSO joined the Council of Europe Advisory Council, the Advisory Council on Youth of the Council of Europe, 2001, and we've been there for most of the cycles, for most of the mandates since then, contributing to discussions around the youth priorities and different programs and so on and so forth. And actually, you're sitting now on the Advisory Council. Maybe you can speak a bit about it later on. Yeah, and I mean, since then, FEMYSO has contributed massively to different projects, initiatives. For example, there was the human rights project that came in 2006 by the Council of Europe. It's called All Different, All Equal. So it was a European youth campaign, focused on diversity, human rights, and participation, especially from the youth. And also FEMYSO was there in the establishment of it, was there in the discussion, around launching such an initiative. And actually, this initiative is still active, until this moment with the Council of Europe. So those are kind of like some of the key achievements in the early dates of FEMYSO. Yeah, so we can maybe jump in, into maybe like other achievements later on.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question as well, indeed. So after the establishment in 1996 and 1997, can you mention a few of the main achievements from FEMYSO in the past 25 years? I think those are really excellent examples. And as you said, we're still sitting on the Advisory Council on Youth, where in the past 3 days, we just had our statutory meetings with the Joint Council, so where government representatives of Council of Europe member states responsible for youth policies, they also come and we actually co-decide on youth policies and youth priorities. 3 long meetings, 3 long days of meetings, but it was very much worth it. But I think there's much more, I think, to the story. Do you think, Youssef, you can provide a bit more on that?
You mean on the Advisory Council on Youth, yes?
On the achievements.
On the achievements.
You have also been, Youssef
Yes.
has also been on the Advisory Council on Youth, and also he's been a bureau member. But maybe you can tell a bit more about that, or of the achievements in general.
We could go on both. I mean, I have no. I mean, if time consents, we can speak about both things. I mean, Abdelrahman already has mentioned quite a few big achievements that have happened in the beginning of the organization, in the first, say, 5 to 10 years of the organization being there. The fact that we got into the Advisory Council on Youth back in 2001, this was like the first mandate where we had a representative. And after that, we had quite a few, of which, I mean, myself as well. And but also in addition to that, like the whole fact of the conversation around massive campaigns that the Council of Europe has done. Like so in this case, that was one of the first big flagship projects in which the Advisory Council on Youth has pushed for, which was the All Different, All Equal, which is still in some member states of the Council of Europe is still taking place. But then, I mean, that's only the beginning, or let's say the tip of the iceberg. There's been a lot of trainings, a lot of projects, a lot of study sessions that took place, whether in Budapest or in Strasbourg, or many, many other places around Europe where FEMYSO was there, either doing it by themselves or cooperating with other organizations. Keeping in mind that specifically at the very beginning, let's say in the first 10 to 15 years, FEMYSO's work, as I said before, like we started as a network, it was more like an opportunity to bring people together. And then somehow like we started to discover there is actually a whole world around us of other organizations, whether faith-based or non-faith-based, other youth organizations with which we could have partnered with, that we could have discussed with, that we could have done events with. And so within the 2000 and 2010, there's been different times and different occasions where we had worked together towards producing toolkits on interfaith and intercultural dialogue with organizations from across the board, members of the European Youth Forum and beyond. We've done events with them as well. And I think also this one is quite interesting that we also kept those relationships and we nurtured this relationship up until now. Because it's true that FEMYSO has is doing something quite interesting, which is brings together young Muslims from all around Europe that come from different backgrounds, whether that background is, from different countries where people were brought up with, so different languages that they do speak, but also sometimes it's ethnical backgrounds that are quite different. Sometimes it's also religious understanding that be quite different. And FEMYSO provided that opportunity for them to discover how diverse the Muslim community is, and how diverse the experiences that we do have as young people in the different European countries are similar yet quite different. But then in addition to that, FEMYSO also took the step after of providing also the opportunity to engage with other faiths in other youth organizations. And then therefore that bubble becomes bigger and bigger, and the organization somehow restructured itself to better cater to the needs of the young Muslims that we had back then up until now, and I'm sure that is going to be still the case for many years to come.
Yeah, actually, I can jump in as well. From what Youssef mentioned, FEMYSO in itself, it's a very diverse network, and this is something that when I attended my first FEMYSO training, or actually it was my first FEMYSO engagement, it was in late 2014. And this is something that kind of struck me. I'm sitting in the same room, in a training 4 days with people from all across Europe, different backgrounds, different experiences, and so on. And this is something that over the years has enriched my experience. And it's something that everyone that comes to FEMYSO events and FEMYSO trainings, actually, they leave with this comment and kind of this experience, that this is something that, that kind of is different. It's different for them. And also let's say if also you go outside the FEMYSO network a little bit through FEMYSO, there's also engagement with many other organizations. As Youssef mentioned, we've had collaborations across the board with, with faith and non-faith based organizations, youth NGOs, and even I remember when I took presidency in late 2019, one of my first visits was actually attending an event with Ecumenical Youth Council in Europe, And I went there. I spent like 3-4 days with them, and also I met there a couple of other organizations such as the World Student Christian Federation. And then, like, you know, from there, actually, we discussed kind of the history between the two organizations. You know, I think going all the way back to around 2002. You know, this is kind of where we started working with those organizations. And also we discussed, okay, like, what can we do in the future? And it was very easy, kind of that discussion, that conversation. I remember, like, they had a training where they invited you know, a couple of our team members to join, one of them as actually a trainer and the other person as a participant for a whole, you know, 3-4 days. And also afterwards, we had a couple of campaigns and a couple of projects we worked on just before the pandemic, and also like through the pandemic as well. And I think this is kind of an added value that an organization and a network such as FEMYSO brings to the members, brings to the youth that are part of the FEMYSO network. Also, it's a great added value also to the wider conversation, to the wider kind of society that we live in Europe.
Perhaps I could jump in, like, because you mentioned something that's quite interesting, that perhaps one of the first events that you attended was this the General Assembly of the EYC, the European the Ecumenical Youth Conference in Europe. So that's quite interesting, because it's also one of the first organizations that we also engaged with as an organization back in 2002, more or less. There's been quite a lot of activities, as I said before, like there was toolkits done together, events that took place together, whether there were trainings, like sessions or seminars. And there was also like a memorandum that was signed in 2012 to celebrate 10 years of engaging with the organization. And hopefully next year in 2022 is going to be even 20 years that these two organizations have been working together. And this is only one example of many. There's many other organizations that FEMYSO has been engaged with. And I also emphasize, like, for one side is like, it's amazing to see the diversity within the Muslim community and see how things are different. But that is just like the first step of like enjoying the taste of how the diversity that we do have in Europe, which is quite unique. That goes beyond only Muslim organizations, but it's also like about all the young people and everything that is happening around us.
Thank you both. Really, when we talk about the history and the achievements, and we mention even years and dates, I mean, I myself, I was literally born 1 year after the organization was set up, but it really gives me this vast like overview or insight into the history of the organization, which really is just huge, which it's really big. And I think taking a step back and looking back at the achievements and the history of the organization, it's really important, because especially if you're in the organization, you can really get stuck in this loop where you constantly focus on delivering, or even looking into the future, planning for the future, but not necessarily appreciating what has been done in the past. So this was really at least insightful for me. Thank you. But of course, besides achievements, there must have definitely been some challenges and difficulties. I'd really like to go in that way as well. Perhaps some things that you can share in terms of challenges from the past, but also things that we've learned from these challenges. Who wants to go first? Abdelrahman?
Okay, it's not nice to go first with the challenges, but you know, I'll take it. Yeah, I mean, there are some challenges that we face as a youth and student organization that other youth organizations and other organizations like us, you know, face in Europe. But also, I think there's also some challenges that we specifically face as FEMYSO, as a Muslim organization. So maybe say some of the challenges that maybe we face when it comes to just being a youth organization is kind of having a lot of working on a European level, and kind of like seeing how we can manage this as students, as maybe young professionals, as fresh graduates. It's not easy, but also like one of the beautiful things that also is in FEMYSO, which I saw, is when you come in FEMYSO, there's a lot of, let's say, training and development that you receive even when you join the organization on the board. And so this also with funding as well. I mean, this is a challenge that everyone faces in the NGO world, especially young organizations as well. So funding has always been one of those challenges, but we're still here, and we're still delivering our trainings, we're still delivering our services to our network. And maybe if I kind of focus a bit on some of the challenges that are specifically facing the Muslim organizations, and specifically young Muslim organizations. I would say definitely the rise of Islamophobia over the years. It has been something that no one wishes that this happens. Unfortunately, there's this rise of the rhetoric of Islamophobia, and then specifically as well targeting activists, targeting young Muslim activists, through social media, through media, and personally, like since I've been in FEMYSO, I've seen this happening, especially whenever we speak about important topics, such as, for example, certain laws that are targeting Muslim women, or for example, we even sometimes when we do something positive, for example, like I remember 2 years ago, or just under 2 years ago, when we were part of the European Parliament elections campaign, and we were doing a very excellent work actually led by Yuhanda, collaborating with the European Parliament and trying to encourage and educate young Muslims and even young people in general about the elections, about the European Parliament, about them participating in the importance of participation. We always get an attack on us as FEMYSO, as young Muslims, for, I believe, for no reason. And I think the only reason is because we are trying to make the society around us kind of more diverse, more vibrant, more inclusive, for everyone to be here. So it's really sad, but at the same time, we understand this as an NGO, and we understand that we need to play that role to give the young people more confidence about themselves, about their values, about their beliefs, and also about them participating, and never shy from participation. So I think this is maybe some of the challenges that I say we faced, or we still face, unfortunately. And I'm sure maybe Youssef can also add a few things to this. He's been a little bit longer than me in the organization.
Definitely. I mean, Abdelrahman, you said it right. Like, I mean, the organization certainly had both internal and external issues that we might have faced, and you've gone quite in details when it comes to the external. But I think it goes from the internal side. The thing that makes FEMYSO different, or that makes the organization quite unique, that brings diversity, that brings young people coming from a variety of European countries and different backgrounds, and that also means a different working methodology. So sometimes that can become also quite a challenge of finding a way of how to work together as people coming from the north, the west, the east, the south of Europe, and the different experiences with different working methodologies that the organization has had. So while Abdelrahman has gone quite into details in when it comes specifically to the external issues, which is quite an important factor, that from one side makes it difficult for us in the work that we're doing, but it also motivates us because it gives us the extra push and the extra energy that actually we need to be more proactive. We need to show that we are Europeans first and foremost, and that we are happy to be part of this an environment that is diverse and cohesive and vibrant. At the end of the day, this is not only our motto, but it's also the motto of the European Union. And it's something that even historically, I'm going to go a bit on a longer term. It's something that maybe 70, 80 years ago might have been quite a long dream to find a European Union that is quite cohesive as it is now. While today we're having some challenges, but then it gives us a bit more of the extra motivation and the extra push that we need to assert our presence and to work and striving for the best for this Europe, which is something that focuses on the diversity and the cohesiveness that brings the best in all of the members in society. While internally, yes, the challenges that can come can be quite different. The challenges can be from very boring details of finding the best way to structure the organization, finding the place where the office should be. And I remind again the question that Abdelrahman has done before. I challenge you as well to find this other country where FEMYSO had an office. But that was also part of the learning curve of the organization, because nothing was clear, nothing was set in stone. I mean, we are young people that we've been working together for 25 years, different mandates, different people that trying to find the best way to be relevant for young Muslims all across Europe, both from our membership and beyond. Because at the end of the day, the organization is there for everyone. So those challenges might have been boring, but they've helped the organization to establish itself. They helped the organization at some point to establish the office in Brussels back in 2000, getting ourselves registered properly as an international non-profit organization, a little bit of learning, how to engage with other partners, with other institutions, with granting bodies and foundations, until we came to the situation that we are now here today. It was not easy, but it definitely was worth the hassle. It was worth the extra hours, the young people that had to think at the time. Also today, the current executive committee, I'm sure that is still putting a lot of energies to find ways of being relevant for all the different stakeholders, both from within the European Muslim youth and the institutions that are beyond us and the partner organization. So it's not all roses and beautiful rainbows, but that's something that pushes us to actually try to achieve amazing things for the best of the society that we're living in.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much both for that. I just want to ask if Abdelrahman is frozen. I don't know if you have an internet issue from his side. Yes, okay, so he's, our host says, our technical host says he's frozen. Let's just maybe go ahead with some other things, and hopefully in the meantime Abdelrahman will join us. One thing that came up to my mind, Youssef, is when we were talking about these challenges in terms of targeting of some of the volunteers, but also funding issues and difficulties, the concept of shrinking civic space. I think the challenges with which a lot of youth organizations or NGOs face can be kind of summarized under this concept, which is it's not really a concept actually. It's a definition of a problem in which the civic space, or the space for civil society, we see is shrinking more and more, not just in Europe but also throughout different countries. Do you think that Abdelrahman's back? Okay. Do you think that the shrinking civic space, do you have any kind of vision for this shrinking civic space for the future? Do you think that this will continue, or perhaps what youth organizations have to play in this?
I mean, this is it's a whole topic, and I think it might be worth to have it as one of the future FEMYSOnow discussions, where you can go a little bit more into details on this topic, because the civic space is indeed shrinking. Is not a challenge that we might find in specific countries. Is pretty much happening all over Europe, and it's a challenge that's not only targeting organizations such as FEMYSO, but also, organizations that are international, to national, to regional. We're all facing this kind of issue, which is a general trend, unfortunately, that is happening, which is it's happening on two levels. From one side is specifically for civil society, where the space that has been created within the last decades is little by little being removed, for whichever reason, whether it is for political reasons or just because it happened. We can discuss on this for many hours, but that's a reality. Whether that's a reality that's happening in France or countries like Russia or anywhere in Europe, this is something that is challenging all organizations from civil society. But then there's an extra burden when it comes to young people, because also young people, we always have this kind of norm or approach of always dreaming. We hear leaders that say oh yes, young people, they're our future leaders. They're going to be the future prime minister. They're going to be the future decision makers. And while it's true, to a certain extent, yes, they're going to be there in the future, but they're here in the present, and they are also they should be part of the conversation and the decision making processes. This is also the reason why the Advisory Council on Youth was created in the first place, through the 70s all the way to now. And also there's been developments happening on how the structure tried to adapt to the necessities and realities. But because you're a young person, a lot of time you get put on another table, we say like you can sit there, you're gonna find someone else to represent you. We're gonna find someone else that can speak on your behalf, which is sad because there's been like movements that have happened since the late 60s up until recently that have pushed for young people to be part of the table, and we're also seeing some countries decreasing the age of to start to vote in different realities, whether it is on a national level or also only regional. And then you see this situation where young people then are put on basically on standby and wait until you get older and maybe you're going to have a chance to sit on a table and discuss. When in reality we should be there and discuss and bring the challenges and bring the potential solutions that we could work together on.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect bridge for the next question that I had, which is the relevance of FEMYSO today. And I think maybe Abdelrahman, we can go ahead with you. Why do you think that an organization like FEMYSO is still relevant today? We know about the history, we know about the challenges, great, but does it really need to exist today and in the coming years as well? What's the relevance of FEMYSO?
I think maybe first I'll follow up on what Youssef mentioned, which is the importance of having young people on the table and around the discussions now, because we always talk about the future, but then we don't involve young people on the table. Where actually it matters, to involve them now, because this future is everyone's future, but also it's the future of those young people that they're going to live it. So, and this is something that FEMYSO brings to the table. FEMYSO, kind of pushes its members and encourages members, and also have these conversations with the institutions to make sure that the young people are there on the table, to make sure that their voice is heard when it comes to the important discussions, not just about Muslims and about minorities, but also around all topics that are important to us as Europeans, as young Europeans, ranging from climate discussions to economy discussion, to discussions around education, and definitely now discussions around employment and the impact of COVID-19 on the employment and the future and so on. And it's key, for us to be there, to be around the table. And this is something that FEMYSO does. It bridges, between the grassroots organizations and the institutions, especially and specifically on the European level. And also, like, as we said before, and I think it's still very relevant, is connecting people and connecting young people and member organizations from across Europe. I think that's also really, really important, because we live, in the same continent. We share the same, challenges and struggles, and I think we have to work together, to make sure that our current, our present time is improving in terms of the situation for the young people and the Muslims in specific, but also the situation as well for us as European citizens now and in the future as well. And also what FEMYSO does, and I did mention it before, and I would maybe re-emphasize on it, is organize a lot of capacity building trainings. And so this is something that we do, as FEMYSO we've been doing for years, and we're still doing, alhamdulillah. And we bring a lot of young people to, let's say, trainings that are quite tailored to them on specific skills that they need, to make sure that they're actively and proactively participating in the different conversations and in the kind of the civic discussions, civil society discussions, civic discussions, and also like they're participating as well and speaking up, about the rights and about the rights of their fellow citizens and so on. So this is something that we do and we continue doing by delivering those trainings, study sessions, as well as going and visiting our member organizations and understanding the challenges that they have. I think also that's something that FEMYSO does very well, is not just sitting there and just like expecting, member organizations and young people just to come to us, come to our trainings, and that's it. But actually we go down on the ground and we visit our member organizations and have discussions with them, spend sometimes, weekends with them, attend events, meet the members, even sometimes even participate with them in some of their activities and so on. So all of those points that I mentioned, I think it emphasizes on the importance of the existence of FEMYSO as an organization, and why we should, all of us should support such an organization to continue to exist and to continue to grow, because we really need this organization for the for the current young people, but for also the ones that are going to be joining in the future, inshallah.
Thank you. That was quite vast, I think. Youssef, is there anything that you'd like to add in terms of the relevance of FEMYSO today?
I mean, I do believe that Abdelrahman was quite extensive on a lot of points, but I just have like perhaps one additional point, which is, let's say that not all young people, not all young Muslims have the privilege of being able to be active in youth organizations or youth centers or civil society organization in their own reality, for whichever reason, whether it is because there is no access to them, whether they live in a place where there is not much of activity happening, or because they live in a specific within their own bubbles. An organization like FEMYSO pushes basically our member organizations and their members somehow like to discover a whole world that is beyond that, and brings that privilege of actually discovering that I mean, there's a lot happening around us, and there's a lot that we as young Muslims living in Europe, that born and raised in Europe and brought up in Europe, studying in Europe, are capable to be part of, and we're able to go and discover new realities. We're able to go and partner with other organizations. We're able to participate in trainings and events that other civil society and other youth organizations are doing. And that's somehow, unfortunately, it's still a privilege for many people. And an organization like FEMYSO somehow like breaks that barrier, or at least like makes that barrier a little bit smaller, and provides more opportunities to go beyond. There's more realities that we're living in. And this is the part of the relevance that the organization has. Definitely the organization keeps on adapting on the realities, because of course maybe this reality is relevant today. In a couple of years' time, maybe that privilege is not there anymore, and the accessibility becomes something that is quite easy for everyone to do. But then the organization, I'm sure, that's going to adapt once again. But throughout the 25 years of this organization, the organization adapted to the realities and the needs of its members, so the member organizations, or generally the European Muslim youth, and has done it generally in a good way. Of course, there's been challenges, there's been like some setbacks and some lessons learned, but we always see that FEMYSO has tried to provide something that encourages these young Muslims to be proud about their identity, to be proud to be Europeans, and to be part of this wider society, and emphasize that we are all here to build together for a better Europe.
Yeah. Thank you. Those are very concrete. I have one more question, which is about the future, but I see that we have an audience question, 2 audience questions, and I'd like to address both of them before we go to the last question. I'd like to say that also, please write your questions, because we only have about 10 minutes left. I'll pose both questions so that you can address both of them immediately. The first one is about the vision and mission that we have as FEMYSO, basically more cohesive, diverse, and vibrant Europe. One of the audience questions is basically about concrete examples. Can we give examples as to how FEMYSO has contributed to this cohesivity and Europe being a more vibrant place over the past decade? Part of this is directly related to our vision. So this is one question, concrete examples about Europe being a more cohesive and more vibrant place. And the second one is, how has FEMYSO aligned its vision to the current BLM, Black Lives Matter challenges across the EU and worldwide? Has FEMYSO achieved any recent actions to help combat such challenges? Abdelrahman, maybe we can start with you. And please, I'm going to be the host that says, please keep your questions short, because we really don't have that much time left.
Okay. Yes, I think we did maybe mention some examples before around the work that FEMYSO, and when I talk about FEMYSO, it's not just FEMYSO as the forum, but also its member organizations that we we've been doing for the past 25 years, and even some member organizations existed for longer. Some of them like were established in the 60s and 70s and so on. And as mentioned, like maybe one of the things that, one of the campaigns that we did recently, which I think, added value to, or was a concrete example of what we stand for as an organization when it comes to making sure that we have a stronger society, a more cohesive one, and so on, is the Outbreak of Generosity. It's a campaign that we did, we launched just over a year ago as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic situation. And this campaign brought together some of our member organizations, some organizations that we mentioned before from different faith backgrounds, from different minority backgrounds. We even had, like, for example, the European Students' Union as well with us as a partner in this campaign. And this shows, the strength of and the cohesiveness that we need to have, and we must have as European citizens and as young people, working together, for a better, for a better environment and for a better Europe. So that's one concrete example that I can think of, and also I can maybe speak here as well about the work that our member organizations did, last year, and they keep doing until this moment in response to the COVID-19, and also it shows the importance of the youth organizations, because also a lot of the times before, like, people would say, okay, why do we need youth organizations? What's their impact? Should we fund them? Should we not, fund them? Also the shrinking space for those organizations. But we saw when it mattered, and when it came to the tough situation that we were facing last year, and a lot of those member organizations, and I would say that every single member organization of FEMYSO did, take action, did, take proactive approach to the situation by supporting, their community. I recall, for example, in France, the Muslim students of France, one of the campaigns that they had was distributing hundreds and I think even thousands of meals to those who are struggling during the pandemic, financially, especially the students. Also in other countries, for example, like North Macedonia as well, our member organization there, they also distributed support to the families that are struggling during COVID-19, losing their jobs and so on and so forth. So this is some of the examples that what FEMYSO does as a network, as an organization, also as a network. And I believe that we can give more and we can do more, because this is the beauty of having young people active and partaking in organizations and coming together and working collectively within the network and also with our partners as well.
Yeah, thank you. Can you maybe address the second question as well? How has FEMYSO aligned its vision to the current BLM challenges across the EU and worldwide? Has FEMYSO achieved any recent actions to help combat such challenges?
So at FEMYSO, when the situation, happened, I think it was May last year, 25th of May, especially with the brutal killing of George Floyd. FEMYSO, we had a lot of discussions internally, in the board. We also had discussions with our member organizations. Obviously, like we had a statement. We also worked closely, with some our partner organizations that work on the African diaspora, kind of also to understand the situation, to understand the experience, and also see where we can support them. We did have a live session, a webinar to our members to speak about the situation. We invited different organizations to have a discussion to educate, our followers and on social media, but also our member organizations as well. And I would say even more concretely, what we did at our last General Assembly, October last year, is we also had a motion passing on the situation of the Black Lives Matter, where the member organizations, together with discussion with FEMYSO, have passed a motion to mandate FEMYSO and to mandate us as a network to do more proactive work around the topic of Afrophobia and and Black hate speech and hate speech against Black people and so on. So this motion has passed, and we are taking some concrete actions at the moment. I don't know how much I can kind of publicized because we're still working on it. But some of those actions are actions inside the organizations, kind of like maybe some awareness trainings and so on. Again, like we're going to make this public soon, inshallah. But also some of it as well, again, like, about educating our member organizations through the events that we have with them, through also, the online platform that we have, such as FEMYSOnow, and so on and so forth. So yeah, this is our approach so far to the Black Lives Matter situation, and we believe that also the direct conversation with the people that are affected by this, by this form of hate and racism is important, and hence why we keep that communication and discussion with the organizations that have been working with this for many years, and to make sure that also we improve our understanding, and also that way as well we can improve as well our action towards combating this form of racism.
Yeah, and I think one thing to add on that is that in my capacity as FEMYSO representative in the Advisory Council on Youth, in the last statutory meetings in October, I personally worked together with the Bureau of the Advisory Council to create a new role on anti-racism. And this was passed through the Joint Council. So for the first time in the history of the Joint Council on Youth, an anti-racism coordinator was created with the efforts of the FEMYSO representative there. And there we also specifically focused on anti-Black racism. This is quite an achievement because this role, or mainstreaming anti-racism within the youth department of the Council of Europe, has not existed before. So this was also actually a FEMYSO effort at an institutional level. I don't know, Youssef, if you want to add anything on either of the questions.
Yeah, I mean, I do have something to add, and I'm sure, like, I mean, Abdelrahman has done an amazing things also from this side, and we're all like looking forward to see what this working group is and the work that FEMYSO is doing internally is going to come up both for the organization and its member organization. I want to just bridge back to the vision of FEMYSO, because the vision of FEMYSO, basically you can break it down to three elements. The first element is that FEMYSO aims to be the leading voice of European Muslim youth. And this is something that is pretty much clear and straightforward, so there is no more need for me to go in detail and explain what that means. The second one is about providing opportunities for European Muslim youth, so basically to develop them and empower them. So that's where FEMYSO comes in with the different trainings, the different study sessions, different work plans and programs and events that happen all the time around, that have happened for the last 25 years, more or less, in which we try to see what are the topics that might be relevant, that are burning for young people, young Muslims in specific, and try to bridge the gap that there is there, and provide them with the soft skills, empowering them, and somehow push them to get out of the bubbles in which they might be in. And the third one is to work towards building a diverse and cohesive and vibrant Europe. I'm sure, I mean, we've focused a lot on this third part, but of course our vision has these three elements that the organization has been achieving and always focusing in whichever action we do, because we always want to make sure that what we do is always in line and with the spirit of the vision and the mission of the organization. But to add one thing on this last point, I think like also like our presence in the Advisory Council on Youth is something that is very, very relevant to mention. Not only because we've been there when the All Different, All Equal flagship project or flagship campaign was launched back in 2006, but we also were one of those organizations that pushed a conversation of what became afterwards the second big flagship project of the Advisory Council, and therefore also the Council of Europe, which is the No Hate Speech movement. Yeah. We were part of a very select few organizations that were discussing what were the challenges that we had at youth, specifically in the online field. So this, I'm talking about back in 2011, more or less, when hate speech online was not a thing, discrimination online was not a thing as much as it is now. Like now, pretty much all institutions are talking about it. Pretty much all social media platforms are trying to do something about it. But we were there since then, since 2011, saying like, this is a challenge. It's something that we are seeing as young people. We discussed it with other organizations. We were convinced that we needed to take actions from it. And the conversation then developed from there to then start to discuss, okay, what could we do? Should we do a project or a campaign on promoting human rights online? which was a first idea before it then became the No Hate Speech movement, which was basically to say like, okay, no, actually, instead of only focusing on the human rights education and providing on, like, let's say the positive things or what we ought to do as young people, or like in general as individuals online, actually we need to target and start to talk about like the big issue, which is hate speech that's happening online without any barriers, because that was a gray zone and still somehow like a gray zone nowadays. And then that became the No Hate Speech movement, which was launched in 2013. It's still going on now in different capacities. The Council of Europe kept on running the campaign for almost 6 or 7 years. Now there is a network that was created afterwards. And this is just like an example of something that has started as part of members within FEMYSO. We're discussing this was a challenge. Then we discussed it with other organizations, non-faith-based organization, faith-based organization, human rights organization, and little by little it became a flagship project that actually had an impact and at least brought a conversation to the table that's, in my opinion, it's quite relevant. And I'm sure that also now, like since the No Hate Speech movement finished, and there's new topics coming in, whether that's going to be the artificial intelligence or any other topic that in the advisory council or beyond the advisory council, and is this conversation going to take place, and hopefully FEMYSO is going to still be there to bring creativity, to bring ideas on what could be tackled for the good of all youth. Because at the end of the day, what we're doing here is not only for Muslim youth, but it's for all the youth that are living in Europe. And this is something that it's worthwhile to be mentioned and remembered. It's also something that pushes me to keep on being proactive within the organization back then when I was president. Because at the end of the day, what we're doing here is for everyone in Europe, hopefully.
Yeah, I can definitely highlight that. And also the campaign is a very good bridge for my next question, because the No Hate Speech campaign definitely was something huge and actually still continues to have a very important impact. In the new campaign that's being developed right now in the youth department, FEMYSO is there. FEMYSO being part of the advisory council, we are there to provide our input in the new flagship campaign that's going to come around. It's going to be something around AI and democracy, young people and democracy. It's going to be something very, very important. And you see that FEMYSO is still part, and hopefully we will continue to be part of these conversations that are not just about today, but also for the future, working together with so many different young people from so many different young youth organizations for the betterment of young people. And obviously young people are a huge part of society. That means whatever we do that's good for young people, it's good for the whole society. So that's actually going to bring me to my final question for both of you. What's the plan? What's the plan for the future? What's the plan for the future of Muslim youth as students work in Europe?
Okay.
In a few words, sorry, it's a caveat I forgot to add. In a few words, because we really ran out of time.
I think also we spoke a bit about like our plans and what we do in the past, in the last 50 minutes, 55 minutes. I would say that, the plans for FEMYSO and for our member organizations, and we're having this regular discussions with them, is that we continue, we continue doing the work that we're doing in terms of providing the space and the safe space actually for young people, young Muslims to be there, to get developed, to engage in network with, within their own communities, but also with the wider society as well as with the institutions, and kind of normalize this, normalize the concept, or normalize the experience that you can, and you should actually engage with institutions, engage with elected officials that you have elected as a citizen of your country or as a European citizen. So I think this is what FEMYSO would keep doing, inshallah, for the foreseeable future, as well as delivering the trainings that we have been delivering. And this year, for example, if the situation permits, when it comes to traveling and so on, this year and early next year, we have a few trainings in line, different topics. One of them is climate advocacy and climate activism. It's a really important topic for young people to advocate and to champion. Another one on entrepreneurship later this year as well. And then kind of the last one is on advocacy and how to advocate effectively, for your cause and for your hopes as well with the institutions and with the wider community and so on. So this is where we hope that FEMYSO will be in its member organizations, and also we hope as well. I really pray for this, that we have a Europe or have an environment where people are not attacked because of of how they look or because of their religious beliefs, and we just come out of I would say a bad experience where but it definitely strengthened us, which is the whole situation of the Dutch elections and how FEMYSO as an organization was targeted for no reason but just being active young Muslims, and also how one candidate who's visibly Muslim, who used to be part of FEMYSO, was targeted as well, and the hate speech there was really pathetic and sad to say the least. And I really hope for everyone, especially the people that were inciting this hate and kind of repeating allegations and stereotypes and so on, to really just take a step back, reflect, and understand that targeting young people and targeting young activists is definitely something that they shouldn't be proud of. So this is my hope, and I hope one day, maybe after, I don't know when I'm going to be in FEMYSO or after I leave, that we see a Europe with no hate, and where actually people stand up against hate, not just the Muslims standing up against hate against Muslims, but everyone stands up against any form of hate or any form of discrimination and so on and so forth. Yeah. And maybe I'll just take the last few words, to be honest, to acknowledge and share appreciation to the efforts of everyone in FEMYSO, especially the executive committee and the volunteers that are working with us, as well as the board of trustees and so on, for the efforts that they're putting into this organization. Besides their work, beside their studies, and they're working really hard. They have, let's say, 2 full-time jobs, FEMYSO and whatever they're doing, as a student and so on. Because without them, we couldn't have achieved what we've achieved over the past 25 years, and also we can't achieve whatever we have planned. So really, thank you, Jazakumullah khairan, to all those who have been active with us in FEMYSO, and also to those who are active also in our member organizations that we didn't mention, but they are in over 20 countries and around 30 or over 30 member organizations as well.
Thank you. Youssef?
I'll be short because, mashallah, it was a good, very good points that were raised, which I completely agree. And then also start with thanking not only the current people that are active now within FEMYSO, in Team FEMYSO, the volunteers, the executive committee, the board of trustees, and so on and so forth, but everyone that has been there in the last 25 years, because without their presence, without their activities, without their motivation, or even the conversation that they used to have back in the past, we wouldn't be here today in 2021 discussing about the 25 years of this organization. So we've been building on what the people before us have done, and we're really thankful for that, and I'm hopeful to see much more to happen in the coming years. One thing that I'm going to mention is the fact that nowadays it's quite easy to get tricked to think that certain things were there since forever. Whether that is the Council of Europe or that is the European Union. I think for us that we were born in it and we were molded within these institutions that we kind of see them as this is the normal and this is the reality. But if you go back just 100 years, which is not really much, this is what, 2-3 generations the past, this was an inconceivable kind of idea. It was almost impossible to think that there is a possibility that Europe is going to be united in a certain fashion that is the current one that we have nowadays. You had the first conversation happening of pan-Europeanism or trying to do a federation less than 100 years ago. And now it's somehow a reality that's still being challenged. It still has to find a way of happening. But that means that no dream is too big to happen. And just as how things were difficult back then, and Europe has gone through a very horrendous and tremendous time for many years, unfortunately. And there's a lot of things that we should never forget from those things that happened in the past 100 years. But hopefully these are also like motivation to show us that actually, even though there is negative situation, there's negative moments in our day-to-day life, there's always hope for things that might come to the future, that can bring us together, that can help us to build together for a better future for everyone. This is something that I would like to stress on once more, because it's really, really important that we are here not only for our own individual benefit. We're not here only for the benefit of a certain group of people or certain nationalities or whatever. We're here for everyone, and we hope that as an organization we'll always be able to cater to this need that we have as a European Muslim youth, as European youth in general. I don't remember where I read this quote or this quotation, but it said something along the line that I am not an optimist, but I'm a prisoner of hope. And I hope that this is also something that, I mean, something that I embody myself or try to embody. And I hope like also the FEMYSO is always going to be also kind of like going on the same track of always hoping to do better and always hoping to cater to the needs of youth around Europe and finding new ways and new creative ways of providing for their needs and their necessities.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, both. Thank you for your time, your energy. I think this was just a tiny moment of reflection on a huge history. And I hope that this whole year and the 25th anniversary year of FEMYSO, which is full of different activities and moments of reflection from our team, will give us more possibilities to look back at the past, to learn, but also to plan for the future with all of our partners, with all of our colleagues. And I am definitely excited to see what's coming ahead. I think you are too. I would also like to personally thank both of you for your own personal efforts and investments in the organization and the vision and mission. Thank you very much.
I have a question before we close. Did anyone try to guess which country or where was the other office of FEMYSO?
I don't think anyone guessed, Youssef. I was actually going to mention this, and that's why we're going to the next time. I don't know if we're going to be invited again on FEMYSO now, but we can keep it next time. Or maybe people can comment on the after, and then maybe next time we can kind of announce it. But
I think it should be something where the host repeats the question until someone actually comments on it. I think that's a nice thing. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. Take care and bye.
Goodbye.